Good evening, 49er faithful. Man, it feels like 2023 is almost here for the NFL because the schedule is out. I am excited to talk about it today. When the schedule release always makes me feel like we're closer to the start of the season than we actually are, but it is always a pleasure to be on Talking 49ers, and it is always a pleasure to have on my co-host, Randon McMahon. Randon, how are you doing this fine evening as we begin this week's episode of Between Two Beards?
I'm a little beat, to be honest with you, man. A little tired, but I'm going to power through. You know, you got to do what you got to do for the fans.
Hey, man, Friday night. Yeah, that's right, man. You just got to dig deep.
You got to dig deep. Got to, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and all those other cliche sayings and put out a good show.
Amen to that. Let's see how many cliches we can. We should do a cliche show. That's got a ring to it, wherein we weave in as many cliches as possible. Every subject is just a cliche because there are so many in the NFL. But I want to thank those that are here in the chat, man. Dustin Kohler, our resident Lions fan, coming in. Anyone else excited about the opening game of Chiefs versus America's team? One pride. I am here for it. I came in, chimed in. Week one, I'm all about the Lions. If you're playing the Chiefs, I'm rooting for the opponents. Stivers Niners 209 show coming in to say, hey, man, watching that Warriors game, I'm sure a lot of folks are. Go Dubs. Hope that they take it to game 7. Phenomenal to have game 7s happening in the NBA playoffs. So I would love to see that. That's happening right now. Feel free to put updates in the chat. We will talk about that as it comes. But he's also saying his 21st birthday is coming up on May 21st, turning 21 on the 21st. I did that myself, save in October, and it was a long freaking time ago that it happened. But happy early birthday to you. 9 days away. Count it down. Pete Gorman coming in. The schedule is harder than people think. We play Seattle twice, plus we play Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philly, Baltimore, Dallas, Minnesota. Very hard. Every year we're playing Seattle twice, and every year those are rough games. Tom Bragg coming in. Hi, Rob and Randon. Going to be another 13-4 season for us. Love the prediction. Trey and Brock will push each other to be the best that they can be. Raphael 562 Niners coming in to wish us a good evening. Myself and Randon, the sneakerheads, and everybody. Nicholas is coming in to take shots. Hey, yes, Randon did just admit that he was wiped, but Nicholas took that and ran with it.
Fair game.
And Raphael calling out the most air miles. We will talk about that. Sorry, Randon, cut you off there, buddy. Respond, please.
No, it's fair game,
Fair game. It is. Man, I flew out to Utah the other day for work, right? And in advance, you think to yourself, I'm going to be hyper efficient. I'm going to take the first flight out. I get there to the office right as everyone else is. Yeah, well, the first flight out of Portland to Utah is 5:30 a.m., which means you're getting up at 3:30, which means for a guy who stays up pretty late, I'm trying to go to bed at 10, but I'm tossing and turning because I know I got to be up at 3:30. I'm wrecked. So I showed up for a video I had to record in Utah with the biggest raccoon eyes ever. Yeah. Love it. Got to embrace it. Got to embrace it. All right, we're getting into the schedule in this one, Randon, and we got quite a few quick hitting topics in it. As always, those here in the chat, please feel free to put in your thoughts, your questions, and contribute as we go along. We always try to bring those in. But let's talk about whether this year's schedule appears on paper to be tougher than last year. Obviously, let me set this up for you, Randon. Last year's hindsight, we know the result. We know the teams that we played. We can look at them and say, well, that game may have looked challenging at the beginning of the year, but it turned out they were a cupcake team. Whereas this year, it's all hypothetical. So with that in mind, when you view this year's schedule, do you see it as tougher or easier? And what's your logic?
Yeah, I kind of looked at it this way, and you're looking at if I remember correctly, the AFC team or division that we played was the AFC West, right? And we thought going into the season, that was going to be the juggernaut division, right? The best quarterback division. Well, the Raiders didn't really have the season they thought with Devontae Adams. Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, was very much limited in his production. So the Broncos were pretty garbage. And
those are two great examples of teams we expected to be good, and then we're not, man.
So that division wasn't even close to what we built it up to be in our heads. So the AFC division we're playing this year is the AFC North. Obviously, Lamar Jackson gets re-signed. Bengals have had multiple straight seasons with good production. Steelers are always going to be a well-coached team. Got
Tough.
a rookie quarterback, so that might be an easier game than maybe what we think, but they're a very good coach team. And then the Browns, right? I mean, Watson is another year of shaking off the cobwebs. He'll have a full camp where he's the guy there.
Right.
Brought in Moore there as a wide receiver, another offseason with Njoku. So they might be the kind of a wild card where they figure it out. And I believe we play them, what is that, week 6. So that's enough of time to see, let them to get cooking. Also, we could be cooking at that point. But
Yes.
I think, based on what we knew, based on preseason thoughts, last year's schedule was a little bit harder because I thought the AFC West was more potent than the AFC North. But you're looking at teams like the Ravens, who have proven year in and year out that they're going to be a competitive team. Bengals the last couple seasons, well-coached team, and then the Browns are the wild card. I think you're probably flipping a coin there between the Chiefs and the Chargers versus the Bengals and the Ravens on
Right.
top 2 are going to be better. So, I mean, I think the AFC matchups are pretty similar to last season.
I really like that logic. It honestly hadn't been part of my consideration in the conclusion that I came to, but that's reasonable, right? You looked at that last year, in particular, if you were looking at it prior to the season, and you said to yourself, those are going to be extremely difficult matchups, right? And thankfully, it turned out that both the Raiders and the Broncos became a bit of a tire fire for different reasons. But on paper, again, it looked very solid. I think this could be the opposite, wherein you talked about the Cleveland Browns. Like, I think a lot of people might be counting them out because of what they saw last year. You just broke it down in how I see it, which is one more year for Deshaun Watson, knock off that rust. They just added Zadarius Smith. I'm going to hit that one later, but that is a tough one within the AFC North. We've got a couple of predictions in the chat as well. We've got folks coming in, Harold, saying, hey, 13-4 is the prediction. I think that would be a fantastic outcome. Brett J with the super chat, sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in. Bro Montana in the house. What's up, Bro Montana? I feel good about the schedule, 12-5. I'm going to touch on whether or not I think that's a reasonable prediction later on, but I feel pretty good about this one. However, in this topic, tougher than last year, I've got to say I find this one to be slightly tougher. So, Brett, I am not feeling quite as hyped about this schedule as it would appear that you are. But I see this one, hard to know, obviously, purely based on opponents, right? We preface that. But both years you're coming off the NFC Championship game. But this year you're first in the division, right? So you're playing the premier opponents. You have the second most miles traveled. And I know that for the 49ers, that's just life on the West Coast, man. We are always going to be one of the top 5 teams in miles traveled. But this year, only Seattle has more miles to go. 9 road games. So the slight majority of our schedule is on the road. And no back-to-back East Coast games. So we can't do any of those week-long camp kind of build trust, build camaraderie, team building.
They have one.
Stayovers. Yeah, the one where Minnesota is the Monday night game that could potentially. Yeah. I get the sense that players are not a huge fan of those stayovers. Like it benefits them greatly, but they don't like to be away from their home. They don't like to be away from their family. So I wonder if that one extra day, because it's a Monday night game, if they choose to come home because of that. But that would be an advantage if they took the stayover. But lots of early starts. They've got 4 10 o'clock starts. Last year, we benefited from a couple of the East Coast games being later starts, and I thought that obviously worked in our favor. So I'm going to say slightly tougher on this one.
Yeah, if you look, now I went the AFC matchup. You look at the NFC matchup. Last year, we played the NFC South, garbage division. I mean, even though we lost the Falcons, but pretty much garbage division. This year, we're playing the NFC East. All 3 out of the 4 teams in the NFC East last year made the playoffs, right? With Commanders were the only one that didn't.
Right.
So, and they're getting a lot of their defensive guys back. They got Johan Dotson going into his second year, so they could surprise some people. So I think that the NFC opponents that we're facing are better. And then, like you said, we finished number 1 in our division, so we're going to play the top opponent in the other divisions as well, outside of the AFC and NFC matchup. So it's supposed to be tougher. That's what the competitive bargaining is. I do think there's some positives. Last year we had our bye week 5, right? or week 6. It was really early. Now it's week 9. All the players
That
said
is
it was
ideal.
it was a grind to play 20 straight games, or whatever I think it was. And so now having that bye in the middle definitely helps us. And then, as much as we wanted to, they already fly enough miles. The London game might have hurt us. Because I doubt they would have put us in London and then have a bye the week after, right? So, and maybe they would have, I don't know, but it would have been interesting to see how much more of those miles would have tacked on to an already grueling plane flight schedule. But I do think the bye in the middle, and then some of the opponents getting stronger, some of the opponents getting weaker. I do think it's about the same, if not a little tougher this year than it was last season.
That is fair. And Tom Bragg coming in to call out, as I mentioned, talking about those early starts. Well, hey, a couple of them are either start of the season or after bye. Says our schedule sets up well. Another mid-season bye, as Randon just called out. All of our 4 East Coast games. 4 East Coast games. One's the first game of the season. Another is right after the bye week. So, yes, it does give the 49ers, hey, week 1, you can get there, settle in, prepare for it. But I just think the body doesn't adjust to that early start. That is the disadvantage. You have that early start, and it makes you prone to mistakes because your mind just isn't at that place that it usually is ready for game day. Let's talk about some tough matchups coming into this one. 2 of your toughest individual games for whatever reason you see fit. What are the 2 toughest games on the schedule for you? Maybe hit the first one and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, I think the first one for me is going to be Cincinnati. So you play Minnesota on the road on Monday night. So then you have a short week playing Cincinnati. Yeah, you're playing at home, right? But Burrow and that team is only beginning stronger. His 3rd year in the league. I mean, unless Lance or Purdy's absolutely cooking, you still are probably losing the quarterback matchup there with Burrow. So I think it's going to be tough. Short week, have to prepare for that style of offense. And Minnesota is going to be, and that's on the back-to-back of those road games, right? So we're on the road, right. Short week, coming home to face Cincinnati. I think that's going to be a tough game.
That is brutal. Back-to-back road games, short week after mini, and then come home to face that elite offense that you have to go against in a potential shootout at home. I do like the fact that it's at home. I didn't have that game on my list, but quite honestly, I mean, you make a compelling case for it. I got to say,
I always do.
For sure. One of the toughest. Credit where credit is due. That was a solid line, sir. I'm taking the obvious one here first, and if it ends up being your second one, which it could be, no intent to steal thunder here, but the Eagles in Week 13, man, I'm just not over that freaking devastating game against Philly and the way in which it worked out, and I just have to call out. All right, so we go at the Eagles, back into Philly, to those shitty fans that are there just talking their trash. Admittedly, they backed it up last year. But God, that miserable city going in there, got to face them, all of that weight hanging over our head. And it just reminds me a little bit of the attitude we had coming out of 2019 when we were all about the revenge tour. That didn't work out so well for us, right? Sometimes you overhype yourself for some of these games. It's going to be a tough one. Philly is absolutely favored to be, probably the top team in the NFC. By most people who are handicapping it, they're favored to be the top team in the NFC, at least top 3 within the NFC. They are going to be a tough team, really phenomenal defense. And then I just have to call out that it feels like more than a coincidence that we are playing the Eagles on Week 13, which happens to be Brock Purdy's number. And that's the guy who got knocked out in the NFC Championship game. Like, it really feels like we got trolled by the NFL here. Like, the NFL was like, wouldn't it be fun to make that Week 13? And then we get doubly trolled because the Eagles put out a graphic to advertise that game. And who do they put on that fucking graphic? Hassan Reddick on the graphic for Week 13, knocking out number 13. It's too much for me to bear, Randon. I had to vent. I had to let that out. It's a little too much. It's too much to be a coincidence in my book. We're getting trolled, and I'm not having that shit.
Hey, You tell him, sister. You tell him.
Yes, sir. I'm letting him know. Hey, reap what you sow, Philly. We're coming. It ain't a revenge tour, but it's something.
Yeah, it's a back alley brawl is what it's going to be.
Yeah, amen to that. It really will be a fist fight.
I think the game before that one lends itself to be, and I know it's Seattle, and we handled them very well last year, won all 3 games. I'm not really worried about them as a team, but you look at another Thursday night game, this one on the road. Seattle is going to be a even better team than they were last year.
Fierce.
And those short weeks are tough. Obviously, they're in a short week too, but they don't have to travel.
Right. That's a huge advantage, even though it's a short trip.
And, I mean, what is it? The 13th man hasn't been as, or 12th man hasn't been as powerful as it's been in previous seasons.
Right.
But it's still a tough place to play. You go in there. And so, not saying that we can't beat them, but I think a short week on the road is always tough for teams. I mean, look at the Giants. They're going to have to come all the way across the coast on Thursday to play us in like week 4. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough game for them as well.
It really will. That absolutely shapes up to be a difficult one. The short week, the fact it's a Thanksgiving night game, right? So that's going to be an interesting factor. Hopefully it gives us that revenge opportunity. I'm going to stop using the word revenge. Hopefully it affords us the opportunity to eat turkey legs on Seattle's field on Thanksgiving night. That would be very fitting. I would enjoy that immensely. Edgardo coming in to ask the question, will you be going to the Philly game? No, that's a hard no. It may take me years to get past the trauma that I suffered going to that game, the emotional trauma of being there at the NFC Championship game in Philly and having those fans rightfully talk their trash, man. They were crushing us. It wasn't right in that it wasn't a fair matchup, but hey, that's the NFL, man. Injuries are part of the game, and they won fair and square. But man, did I revel in the idea of them losing in the Super Bowl. And no, I have no desire to go back to Philly. I don't know that I will go back to that stadium ever. It feels like one that I've checked off, and that is that. There's some stadiums I'm compelled to go back for the city, for the experience, for the stadium, for the fans. I don't think Philly is in that category.
Okay, good on you, man. You knocked it off the list and good to go.
Check it off. The last one for me is that Cleveland game, week 6. Because it's another early start. You're going into Cleveland. You're talking about solid football fans, right? A solid place to play. I do believe that Deshaun Watson is going to knock off some of that rust. And then as of today, you could make a very compelling argument that they just became one of the most elite pass rushing duos with Myles Garrett already there and making the trade for Zadarius Smith. That in combination with the fact that we are, let's just say, trusting that right tackle is not going to be an issue for the 49ers in what appears to be, the moving on. That to me becomes problematic of traveling, early start, tough offense, and elite defense. That one strikes me as a surprise tough game.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a compelling argument. There's just so much unknown with that team that you don't really know how they're going to gel. You could see them continually be the Browns that we know to be and mess everything up, or you could see them galvanize together with a full off season. I think the dog and pony show of Watson has kind of like subsided a little bit,
right,
on the national media.
The narrative has quieted.
Yeah, so then you'll have a full off season to prepare, and then Watson can just focus on playing football rather than answering questions consistently at every stadium he plays at. And during the off season, I don't think it'll be as big of a story. So maybe they'll have a time to just focus on football.
Yeah, you have to imagine that's a distraction. I mean, a distraction he probably deserves, and still a distraction nonetheless. And I agree that I think that one is going to sneak up on people. And the Browns have that sort of shadow cast upon the team of didn't perform up to expectations last year, have consistently underperformed. So feels like a game that could be overlooked, making it even tougher. Let's talk about a stretch of games that are going to be challenging for the 49ers. What do you see as the toughest 3-game stretch on the schedule, and why?
I think I'm going to kind of break the rules here a little bit, and I'm going to do a 4-game stretch.
Breaker.
because Minnesota doesn't really frighten me, even though they have a high-powered offense. But that 4-game stretch of Dallas, Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincinnati, 2 games on the road back to back. As much as we own Dallas and we're their daddies, they're still a tough team. And Cincinnati there, I think that 4-game stretch is good. If I had to stick to the rules, I think it would be Seattle, Philadelphia, and Seattle. That 3-game stretch there.
I like that you broke the rules there because it gave us 2 stretches to talk about. Because I went chalk, right? I went with the obvious pick there, but I like what you did in throwing Minnesota in there. I mean, you can kind of take them out and squish that into a 3-game stretch. But you're right. When you look at the totality of those 4 teams, even though Minnesota may not put fear into your hearts, when you look at the rest of it, when you look at the travel, every factor that goes into it, that's going to be a tough stretch. And so when you combine that, you're looking at 7 games that become a pretty tough stretch. That's almost half the freaking season. So it goes back to this idea of, yes, there are some favorable things about this schedule release. Yes, it's exciting that this came out, but I also believe that this sets forth a gauntlet for the 49ers. And this is going to be a challenging season, regardless of the fact that they're returning so many of their players. And I did. I picked weeks 12, 13, and 14, right? Philly, to me, is the toughest game on the schedule. You're going up against the team that's most likely going to be the best in the NFC or vying for that position with the 49ers. 2 of the games are on the road. One's a Thursday night game. And Seattle, unfortunately, appears to be good again, right? Like last year, I don't think was an anomaly. I do believe that second half of the season, Geno Smith is more of what we'll see than when he was electric and on fire. But even second half of the season, Geno Smith is going to be a quality quarterback and going to get Seattle probably into the playoffs. I see them certainly there because those games are so close together. And Jennifer Lee Chan called this out on the podcast with Matt Mayoko. The NFL seems to be doing this more and more with division teams, with division rivals of these. Play a team, another team, and then back to play that division rival. You saw it with the Rams. You've seen it against Arizona. And coming in now, we have this one against Seattle. Because they may be vying for first in the NFC West, like that gauntlet could potentially change the outcome of what the playoffs look like in their entirety, right? If you go through a rough stretch or you have an injury bug strike the team in that range, that could be a really consequential stretch of games.
Yeah, I think it's something you just got to take every season by itself, right? And Harold down there said, "Are you scared of Geno?" Well, it's like Geno had a really good season last year. Like he was one of the top in completion percentage. He threw the ball really well. They added arguably the best wide receiver in the draft to play in the slot. So now they have a legit 3-headed monster. The 3rd best running back to back up Kenneth Walker. They got the best corner in the draft. So like their team to pair it with Woolen, who led rookies in interceptions last year, like their team is good.
Yep.
Like just because they didn't do well against us last season is last season, right? I mean, they could be a completely different team. They could be vaulted to the next level. And so could we. I mean, granted, you could see Trey 100%. Lance, right? Or Trey Lance or even Brock Purdy. Like if we had that offense for the last, 8 games that he was in for the whole season, this team could be 15-2 or whatever, right? So it just really depends on which teams you're getting. But you guys, it's not like you can't give. People are so afraid to give credit where credit is due for teams, and like the Seahawks are a good team. Like,
they deserve that credit. And
they're
as much as
very well coached, Geno Smith turned it on, and they got noticeably better in the draft.
They did. And that's what I was going to begrudgingly admit there is like, as much as I want to hate him and his freaking gum chewing ways, Pete Carroll's a good coach, man. Like he gets the most out of his players week in and week out. And last season was a perfect example of that. No one put them in the place they ended up. No one thought they were going to be contenders. There was talk of a rebuild. There is no more talk of a rebuild. They simply are still at that echelon of competing for the playoffs. And so to answer Harold's question, no, I am not scared of Geno Smith. Am I wary of Seattle in their entirety as a team? Very much so. Seattle as a team is one that I do not want to overlook. Geno, if I'm picking quarterbacks that you're going to put the ball in his hand with 2 minutes left and, the game on the line, no, Geno's not at the top of the list of people that I'm scared of. But to Randon's point, when you look at the complete team, especially adding those weapons, adding a third wide receiver to that wide receiver core. I think you have to be wary of Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team. You're just hoping that our defense stays as dominant as it has been consistently with the new defensive coordinator. But that's why they call it any given Sunday, and it's the toughest 3 game on the stretch. I mean, playoff team, NFC championship or NFC champion, playoff contender, right? So or
no
team
doubt.
again. So
no doubt. We got Brian Culp coming in with a prediction 15-2 or better. Niners are that good. I will agree with the second half of that statement. Niners are that good. I would not be shocked by 15-2. I'm going to say it right here. I thought about putting this out on Twitter today, yesterday, and I still will. The Niners are winning it all this year. Like, just book it. It is happening. That is the quality of this team. So I will not be shocked. I am not making my prediction at 15-2. But I do see this team as elite, and I don't think that 15-2 is out of the question. Niners are that good. Do you agree with that second half of the statement?
The Niners are a good team. Yeah. I mean, they're
that they're good enough to potentially go 15-2. A lot of things would have to fall in their favor, in my humble opinion, but they are good enough to be a 15-win team.
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't pick them to go 15-2, but yeah, I think they're good enough to be. Yeah.
I'm not betting. I'm not laying any money on the line there, but I am laying some money on the Niners winning the Super Bowl. Book that, put down the receipt, come back and talk your shit if I'm wrong, but remember this day when I'm right. 916-49er coming in. Good to see you guys, Rob and Randon. Pleasure to see you in the chat as well. Tom Bragg coming in. We're automatically much better this season with Garoppolo finally being gone. Plus, we added Hargrave to our D-line and added a great young kicker. Man, the kicker hype is real, Randon.
It's like nobody like gives Gold credit. Like it's like oh, we're so much better with Moody, and it's like Gold was like one of the top 5 greatest kickers of my generation. Like
that really is true. I mean, he is like all-time scoring leader as a kicker. He was perfect in the playoffs. Like, it is hard to be better than Robbie Gold, but I am here for the kicker hype because, as you know, I was a fan of the Moody pick. I wanted it to be made prior to the draft. Ian Sharp coming in. Robbie, who are we talking about? We are on to bigger and better things.
I've never seen so many people cream their jeans for a kicker. I've never seen it in my entire life.
It's out of hand at this point.
Over under 5 Moody jerseys. Your first game that you go to this season for the Niners that you see personally.
Dude, that's okay. So let me call out a story that you just brought to mind here. So back in like 2000 something, before the Harbaugh era, I got some tickets for a birthday to an Atlanta Falcons game at Candlestick Park. Niners taking on the Falcons. We got smoked in that game. It was a game where Roddy White went for 200 yards. It was depressing to watch the game. And it was sad that like I had gotten the tickets, like in some way, somehow, Jed York had sent tickets. We got field passes. My dad and I had an epic day. And as we're on the field, Candlestick Park, touching the grass, we're walking around and there's a guy in a Joe Nedney jersey, a kicker jersey, because you never see him, to your point of how many am I going to see opening day. Turns out he's like the head of the Joe Nedney fan club. He's a photographer in the NFL, and he travels around the league only wearing kicker jerseys and like has this kicker community that he has started. So long story short here, it went a roundabout way to say, no, I don't think I will see 5 Moody jerseys. Like, yes, the hype is very real. People are excited, but it is so rare for anyone to embrace a kicker. I will be thrilled if I do. Dustin might buy one because he is, as much as he's an avid Lions fan, he is that much more of a Michigan fan. I don't know. Maybe it's neck and neck. Dustin, you can correct me there, whether you bleed blue or your pride is higher for the Lions. But yes, Dustin is very excited about that pick. I'm sure every time he hits a clutch kick, Dustin will be in the comments letting us know.
Moody better hit his first one for all his fan club out there.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine the panic that will ensue if he misses the first attempt?
Yeah.
The Robert Aguayo memories will come pouring back of like, oh my God, did we just select a kicker that's going to be out of the league next year? phenomenal.
I'm not here for it because that would mean our team has a greater chance of losing in Pittsburgh. But I
still
think it would be ironically funny.
I thought a comment was coming, and then you totally just bit your tongue. You're like, wait a minute. No, I'm not here. Nicholas Federico coming in. I put 100 on the Niners, taking the division. Solid bet, but I'm guessing you didn't get great odds there. So that one is tough because I think you're right on. I think it's easy money, but you probably didn't make much. 100 on winning the NFC Championship. I always love hedging that. And then 100 on the bowl. Boom. All bets placed in February. Let's go. I appreciate those bets. I think those are solid, and you have a good chance. I want to find out where the Niners are going off right now because I would like to lay down some serious coin there. All right, we're getting into the next topic. We're talking about road games. People who watch the channel regularly know that road games are a passion of mine. I'm attempting to go to every stadium in the NFL. So for me, that influences a little bit of the places I want to go to. But this year in this segment, that's not what I am talking about because there are only 3 games on the schedule, away games at stadiums that I haven't been to yet. Jacksonville, Washington, and Cleveland. So those are the 3 that are my options to see a game at a stadium that I haven't been to yet. I was most hyped about the potential for an England game going over across the pond, obviously. Kind of grateful that didn't happen. But as far as road games worthy of attendance for whatever reason, is it the food? Is it the city? Is it the people? Is it the history of the team? Is it the stadium itself? What are your top 3 road games in whatever order? Not that they need to be ranked, but what is one of your 3, Randon?
Right off the gate, week 1, Pittsburgh. Avid fan base.
Ding.
I enjoyed my time in Pittsburgh when I went for my baseball tour to see the Pirates. The stadium is right on the river, so it's absolutely beautiful. A fair amount of good beer, lots of good food. I think you would just have a good time. I don't know how rambunctious the Steelers fans are. Like, are they closer to Eagles fans, or are they closer to a team that just really loves their team and they're good to talk to? Like, there's those types of fans too. So I think Steelers would be a good one. Just I think atmosphere there, and you just have a city that loves sports.
Yes.
Right. So like you could and it's in September, so you could probably double team it up. I'll look up the Pittsburgh Pirates schedule right now. You might be able to see a Pirates game and a Steelers game.
That would be sweet. I am with you. That was my number 1 on the list as well. Steelers week 1. You hit it all, man. Great city. It's a beautiful city. That location on the river there is so picturesque. You get to, if you plan it right, you can stay in the city and then just walk over one of the bridges to get to the stadium. It's right next to the Pittsburgh Pirates Stadium. So you've got the visual of 2 very compelling stadiums right there next to one another on the riverfront. Phenomenal food. I mean, a lot of stick to your ribs type of food. Like, you're not going to Pittsburgh to lose any weight, right? You're gaining 5 pounds on that trip because they're mashing French fries into sandwiches and shit like that. They're trying to bulk up for winter in
Hibernation.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's what's happening there. And you're right. Committed fans. You could argue no fan base, maybe save for Dallas, travels as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see those damn terrible towels at every stadium they go to, man. And it pains me because my best friend is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And so I got to give it to him. I've been to Pittsburgh with him one time, and we lost that game. I have to say, even though I have been to this stadium, this game tempts me. This is one of those that I think, damn, a trip to Pittsburgh, good food, great city. Jack might be going to that game. Jack Hammer thinking about week 1. That is a tough one to pass up.
Pittsburgh Pirates playing Monday night, so you could go see the Pirates the next night.
Dude, you could do a twofer, hit both stadiums. That is huge. Man, that's a big one. Yes, I would say that one is on my list. What is your second game that's worthy of attendance on the road?
I like Jacksonville.
Strong.
Their team is going to be better, so the game should be good. Because they were good last year. It's going to be November, so why not go to Florida where it's going to be nice and warm? You could probably still wear shorts. It'll be a day game, so you can get plenty of time to party the night away when the Niners beat the pants off them Jaguars. and or you can catch a good flight, because sometimes those late games you're catching a flight at like 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. Hey, you get a noon game, you could be back home by 8 o'clock for dinner, if you wanted to. So a lot of movement there if you really wanted, and it's going to be a warmer game in Florida in November, where maybe you wouldn't normally get that with a lot of the North cities.
That's one of the ones that I go back and forth on. Like, it's Florida first and foremost. Say what you want about that state. Like, it's out of pocket in some regards. Great weather, though. You certainly hit on one of the positives there, and a great team to watch. That's the appealing part of that game to me. Is Jacksonville Jaguars are a team on the ascension, getting to watch a young, fun quarterback as he progresses into potentially one of the greater talents within the league. That one is on my list. And then I think about long cross-country flight for me. It's Florida, so sometimes there are a lot of families on those flights going to frickin' Disney World, although that's typically Orlando. That one is on the fence for me. I am saying, as my second road game worthy of attendance, the Browns at week 6. I know I called it out earlier, but man, to me, that's going to be a fun one to check off. That the history of football in that town runs deep. It's such an old school vibe, and it sets up as a team that's not super exciting, that they could be a middle of the pack sort of performer. But I'm predicting that this is one of those teams that really rises up this season, that we see a significant improvement from the Cleveland Browns. And so by the time we get around to week 6, I'm guessing they will have shown that they are one of those elite teams, and therefore it raises it up a notch. Plus, I feel like, again, you're going to have good stick-to-your-ribs type of food out there in Cleveland and good fans.
Yeah, I think I've been to Cleveland. It was all right. Like, there was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so there's some good touristy stuff there.
That's good.
Maybe I just, I did like the Indian Stadium when I went there, but like the city as a whole, I didn't feel like there was a lot to do. Maybe it's because we went towards the tail end of the vacation. I was just burnt out. So it might be different for a Browns game, but yeah, it didn't really peak. It didn't really peak for me like it is for you. I don't know. I just think it was like, I'd be okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got to call this up because for those that don't know, JT56 is one of our resident Eagles, maybe our only resident Eagles fan. He was here when we were playing them, was there the week before, talked his trash, and then came back and wasn't at all obnoxious in just saying, hey man, we won. Took his victory lap as one should. And I just got to call that out, that earlier I talked my shit against the Eagles fans. I need to single out that is the majority of the people I came into contact with. There are quality Eagles fans out there, and I believe JT56 to be one of them. So I hope that you get your wish, because I also want that starting quarterback to be in on week 13. And I think this time around, I may be the one doing my victory lap. But I will be here in case it is your turn again to take another victory lap. I'm always here to take that punishment when I am wrong about it. By the way, Dustin, I think referencing Tom Norton, the kicker that Moody beat out, who was supposed to be the next great thing, had this leg from nowhere that could kick through the back of the end zone and then some, but Moody comes in to replace him. We're going kicker on this episode. Just kickers. All right, your third and final road game worthy of attendance, good sir.
Minnesota. So I've been to Minnesota a couple times. Great food up there, like hundreds of good breweries. I'm a big craft brew guy.
Yes, sir.
It'll be indoors, so you don't have to worry about the elements. And there's a lot of good concert venues there. So if you can kind of maybe pair up that with a concert, that'd be cool. I really enjoyed my time. My sister went out there, lived out there in Minnesota for a little bit, so I enjoyed visiting her. I got a couple friends out there.
Nice.
So I think the combination of the good food, like I said, stick to your ribs type of food up there in Minnesota as well. You got a good new stadium to go to. You and I thoroughly enjoyed Atlanta Stadium being indoors when it was like 1 billion degrees outside. So good beer program for me. I like that kind of stuff. I think Minnesota would be my third choice there.
Dude, we are in lockstep on 2 of our recommendations to the sneakerheads here, talking about games you want to attend. I'm with you.
And it's prime time.
The Vikings, prime time, Monday night game, gorgeous stadium. I mean, Man, could be the most gorgeous stadium in the NFL, certainly in the running for it. Quality food options. Who doesn't love cheese curds and beer, right? Like that's just heaven. All sorts of breweries. You named it. The stadium is right downtown, so you can stay in downtown, walk to the stadium. That's always phenomenal. Good luck staying in San Francisco and walking to Santa Clara. I always enjoy when, like with Pittsburgh, that just makes for a better fan experience. When you get out of a stadium and you then walk into a city of people that are either, celebrating, either opposing fans like you celebrating a victory, or you've got to be in a bar with a bunch of their fans celebrating a win. It just changes the experience and truly adds to it in my book. I can't understate the idea of it being a night game in that gorgeous stadium. And I'm going to give honorable mention. I think this one, quite honestly, it should have made the list, even though, and this is crazy to say, even though it's a freaking preseason game. The Niners going out to Vegas, seeing the Jimmy Garoppolo madness, Vegas just being Vegas, that's going to be a pretty elite preseason game. And I probably won't go unless it's ridiculously cheap to do so. But man, a good excuse to go to Las Vegas if you got one. Thank you for that. The Stivers Niners 209 show. All right.
I want nothing to do with that city.
Yeah.
Stealing my baseball team.
Oh,
you can shove it. Las Vegas.
There is a resentment built there, and for good reason, sir. All right. So this one, setting it up as, if we don't win this game, we're in deep shit. So what is that game that you look at it and it looks like the easiest one on the schedule? But you never know what can happen in the NFL. That football bounces in funny ways. You can lose it. What's the game that if the Niners dropped it out of the blue, you'd be like, oh, man, this sets up for trouble?
I don't really know if they're the easiest team on the schedule, but I think it's the point in the season that could be problematic would be the Commanders in week 17, right? So
interesting.
Down to the wire, you're looking to clinch, probably you're clinching either the division there if we don't clinch the division earlier, or maybe the number 1 seed, right? So you're looking at something along those lines where, hey, we maybe just played a tough team in Baltimore at home Monday night. You come off a huge win, short week, playing on Sunday. You're gonna have to go cross country. It is New Year's Eve, and like that could be clinching the number 1 seed in the NFC. Wow. And if we lose that game, that could be the most detrimental to our playoff seeding and the season, I think. I don't think they're necessarily the weakest team on our schedule, but I think that part of the season could be the most problematic for how the season ends up.
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with you on that they are not the easiest team on the schedule, but the way in which you set that up and the argument you made there, extremely compelling. I'm with Randy Daytona here saying, hey, cheers, Randon. Obviously. Yes, I'm going to set this up as one of the easier teams, hypothetically, on the schedule within our own division. I'm saying that it is Arizona in week 4 because of where it falls in the schedule. Week 1 is going to be tough against Pittsburgh. That one, talk about in a minute. LA might be an easy week 2, should be an easy week 2, but then we come home against the Giants, who are no slouch. We have started the year slow underneath Shanahan almost every single season. Going into this year, we are not entirely sure who the starting quarterback will be week 1. Randon, you've made the prediction. It's entirely possible that it comes true that Brock Purdy starts on PUP. In that case, we're waiting to see who wins the quarterback competition. It would seem like Trey Lance has the clear advantage to win that quarterback competition, and I would think that Trey will continue to progress. I certainly believe that he will, but it's a lot of speculation there. Getting in and starting slowly this year, coming out 2-2 or going even 1-3 would hurt our seeding significantly because of those late stretches of tough games that we talked about. Those 4-game stretch that includes Minnesota and Cincinnati close together. The 3-game stretch of Seattle twice, playing against Philly in Philly. All of those come later in the season. So this is the year that Shanahan and the 49ers need to turn it around and have a faster start. So to me, that means you beat up on the 2 teams that are obvious that you can beat up on. You've got to crush LA, and you have to crush the Cardinals as well.
I mean, I fully expect them to start 2-0. I mean, LA, You never know though with Stafford if his neck is healed or whatever that team, because it's just he could throw to Cooper Kupp 1,000 times and Cooper Kupp could have
It's a fair statement.
20 catches for 250 and 2 touchdowns like he's burnt us before. But that team doesn't scare me as much as they used to because they were a dumpster fire last year. But that was mainly because of Stafford and him getting injured. He says he's going to be. He didn't want to retire. He said he's going to play or try to play. There hasn't been a full I'll be ready for the beginning of the season. So that's a lot of unknown. But you're right. I mean, if we do lose that game in Arizona, there could be a lot of what ifs, right? Like if Purdy starts the season, like he's healthy and starts the season, and we start badly and he loses that game, did the Niners rush him back too soon? Should they have put him on the injured list?
Right.
If Trey doesn't start the season hot and they lose a game that they should win, is this the right decision? Did we move up to 3 for the wrong reason? Let's bring Purdy in there quicker than sooner. If for some reason I'm seeing Ghost Darnold starts the season, we already have more problems than losing to Arizona.
I love it. Dustin Kohler making the prediction 2-0 guaranteed. I will take that. Flav's son coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel. Damn, I need to rewind. My notifications weren't on. Dang it. Well, hey, you're not watching live or watching, and that's what matters. But that reminds me, make sure that you do hit that like button. Do us that favor. Amplify the message for Randon and I. Follow the channel. Turn on the notifications. And all of Randon's information down below to follow him on Twitter, to follow along with the Hockey Royalty podcast. It is in the description of the video. After you hit that like button, head on down there and check that out. Give him that support. All right. So we'll go into a couple of quick hitters here to close this one out. And the first of those is a game that's potentially harder than it looks. Like, on paper, it looks like one that, hey, the Niners should, but for some reason, it may catch them by surprise. What do you see as that game that might jump up and bite them in the ass?
Potentially harder the game than it looks. Combing this one, I mean, you're looking at a team that maybe might be harder. I mean, than it looks is going to be New York, right? I mean, that should be a winning game. It's going to be a short week. They're coming all the way across the country, so we should have all the advantage in the world. But the New York Giants are a playoff team. Danny Dimes seems to have some sort of relevance in this league. Finally, they're gonna have Saquon Barkley, which can run the football. Their defense is a whole lot better than what people thought, and so maybe that game could kind of catch us off guard there when we seemingly have the advantage in every other aspect.
I like that prediction of a tough game. I'm gonna go week 1. Right off of the bat at Pittsburgh. They have an elite defense. And I think because of that overall record, we forget that year in, year out, that is a tough team to play and especially a tough place to play. You go in there, it's an early start time. Yes, it is the first week of the season, but the Niners will still arrive at the same sort of advance to the game that they usually do. And so their bodies will not be used to that time clock. Usually, Niners having an elite defense, fully expect them to be the best defense in the league yet again this season. I think Pittsburgh will be a top 5, top 10 defense. Those two together usually come out with a low-scoring affair. You saw that against the Dallas Cowboys last season. The number 1 and number 2 defense going head-to-head. Everyone was predicting bigger scores, myself included, and it just became a slugfest. Pittsburgh could be that. And in those games, it's typically turnovers that matter, mistakes that matter, penalties, things like that. The Niners have historically started slow. They've been sloppier at the beginning of the season, and that 10 o'clock start time, like I said, I just believe that its effect on the mind is bigger than it is on the body, that you see teams making mistakes that they might not because it's just earlier and you're not quite at peak. You haven't had your Red Bull or whatever to get you to that level. That to me strikes me as one that we could drop, and it would be a real shame to go into the season dropping the first game.
That's what happened last year, and it sucked.
Yes.
Nobody thought we were
going
to. Nobody thought we were going to lose to Chicago.
No one did. And you never know. We think it's going to be good weather in Pittsburgh. Chicago highlights for us. Hey, you can have a monsoon at the beginning of the season. Joe E has come in with the super chat. First and foremost, thank you, Joe E, for the super chat. and the praise. Comes in to say, love the show, Rob and Randon. Have an unpopular opinion on the record and possibly a friendly wager on the record prediction, but I'll DM it. Don't want the chat coming for my head, LOL. All right, you are more than welcome to hit either Randon or I on Twitter. Randon's Twitter is down below. Mine is just at the left shoe, SCHUH, or email me at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com, which admittedly I have not checked in a while, but I will in the near future. Joe E., I look forward. This is like a cliffhanger. I don't know what this unpopular opinion is, but I want to know. This is the type of show where we love to throw out unpopular opinions.
Yeah, stand on your laurels there, Joey. Throw it in there. Come on.
All right, you've got encouragement from Randon. It's a safe space. If you want to do it, we got your back. If you want to DM us, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I see CJ Gray in the chat, and anytime I see CJ, I got to bring it in. CJ Gray, sneakerhead here on the channel. Man, CJ, I don't mean to bring it up, but I had the chance to meet him in person a couple of times at some games that were painful to be at. But to me, that just brings a cooler bond of getting to meet one another and sort of suffer through some of those losses that are going to make those next wins all that much sweeter. He says, loading up for either Jacksonville or Pittsburgh. Those are both going to be good games. Either one would be fun to be at. It's absolutely going to be a couple of the best games of the season, if you ask me. Dustin saying, hey, just tell Mark, that's my resident Steelers fan, best friend, that the Steelers have no shot. I will gladly say that loudly and proudly, and I will have to put a wager down for week 1. I'll do it publicly here on the air, and the Hicks family can come into the chat. He has 2 young daughters that will probably, my goddaughters will probably trash talk me in the chat, and I am here for it. And we will place a friendly wager, and we will certainly air Joe E's wager when he does decide to send it our way. All right.
None of us won the hot dog wager.
No, we did not. That's disappointing. Yeah, no. That would have been a fun one to make happen.
I just thought about that. Yeah.
So we have 5 primetime games, Randon. Another quick hit topic. What do you think this says? What's your reaction to having 5 primetime games?
We've had 5 primetime games for the last 3 seasons. The Niners are a watchable franchise. We have one of the most historic fan bases. We're a good football team. Enough said. Enough
said. That's how I am. It shows the league expects us to be elite. You've been in back-to-back NFC championship games. That's a reasonable expectation to have. So to me, my reaction to 5 primetime games is duh. The league is here to make fucking money, and the Niners are a highly watchable football team, so they're going to be in prime time. Now, what I do want to touch on is this Nets topic, because 2 of those primetime games are Thursday night football games. And I'm not happy about this, Randon. The reason this show started at 7:03 instead of 7 o'clock is because I was ranting to Randon about how pissed I was about getting 2 Thursday night games. I'm starting to really dislike Thursday night games. The quality's weak. The games are unpredictable. Injuries seem more common. I got to say, man, this was the least favorite part of the schedule reveal for me.
I mean, the players don't love it. I mean, Kittle came out and said, who in the players' PA, association agreed to this? What is going on here? We don't need Thursday night football every week.
We don't
make each team play at one time. That gives you 16 weeks, and you just don't do the other 2 weeks. I just don't understand. I guess you have 6 teams playing on Thanksgiving, so that would you'd have to short it even more than that. But that
one is the exception. I'm not offended by the Thanksgiving games because it's tradition and whatnot, but I'm with you.
Lions, doesn't Lions have 3 Thursday night football games?
Wow, because they automatically get the freaking Thanksgiving game. That's brutal, Dustin. That is atrocious, my friend. I'd be pissed.
That can't be true. I thought they can't have more than 2. Man, if that is true, that is awful.
CJ Gray pointing out, Kittle complained about Thursday games, and now we have 2 of them. The NFL continues to troll us. They put our matchup against the Eagles on week 13, Brock Purdy's number. I tell you, that was intentional. Then the Eagles double down and troll us further, and the NFL comes back and says, oh, George Kittle, you don't like Thursday night games? You're not a big fan? How about you have 2 of them? How about you have 2 of them on your way?
They do have 3 Tuesday night games.
3. That's Thursday. Ridiculous. What are you doing, NFL?
They start the season off on Thursday night, which I guess is like the first game, so that's not a short week. So maybe that kind of
That's why they're excusing it. But that's weak. That's weak.
But then
That's
they play
it against
week
the Chiefs.
4 on Thursday night and Thanksgiving. Yeah.
That's right. Randy calling out what it is the NFL is all about money. And they have taken over 3 nights of the week now. And once they get to the end of the season, they take over Saturday as well. And they're probably not going to let up on that. But I think they do need to be conscious of the quality of product that they're putting out. And I just feel that it's pretty clear that the quality of Thursday Night Football just isn't on the same par as the regular games. And that, to me, I get less excited about watching those Thursday night matchups. And I am freaking diehard about watching football.
Well, one of our Thursday night matchups is Thanksgiving as well.
Yes, that's true. That is very true. At Seattle on Thanksgiving. If we had to give up one, that's not the one I'm giving up, because that's the game I need us eating some turkey legs on Seattle's freaking field. I need to feel that emotional freedom.
I just don't think I've ever watched the Niners play on Thanksgiving. I don't think I've ever remembered.
I don't believe so either. I mean, that's a good question. That is one that we should throw out. If anyone in the chat knows, have the Niners ever played on? Certainly not in a long time, right? The Thursday night game on or not Thursday night, but the 2 games on Thanksgiving for the Cowboys and the Lions have gone back a long ways. But I don't know that the Niners were ever a part of that.
Super Bowl odds, I looked them up for you. Super Bowl odds for the Niners. The best is off of FanDuel at plus 950 is the best odds you can get. Hey,
man, 9.5 to 1. That's not bad. That is not bad. Put down some serious coin, get back a serious payday. I will have to, if I make the wager, when I make the wager, I will let it be known what I have laid on the line behind my bold prediction made way too early. All right, so we've talked about the schedule, and we will hit one more topic as we close out in talking about the way too early record prediction over under the stated 11.5 games that Vegas has laid out. But before we do, something came out about our new defensive coordinator, that Wilks is actually going to be coaching from the booth this season. It's actually, it didn't occur to me as something to monitor as whether a coach is on the sideline or in the booth, but it is the first defensive coordinator under Shanahan to do so. And it clearly, Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans had a certain flavor being there on the sideline. Does this concern you at all, or is this just a matter of preference?
I think it's just a matter of preference. I do like the fact of, like, both Saleh and DeMeco Ryans are like outwardly have outward emotions on the sideline. I think our defense is highly emotional when they play. And so, like, seeing your coach pumped up for sacks, I mean, I guess Coach Surik is just going to have to, like, double the load of his excitement, which is probably easy for him to do. But, yeah, like, I mean, it seems weird. I don't know. Maybe he's always done this. He just feels more comfortable seeing the entire field, seeing how the offense lines up. But it's always cool to, like, see the head coach or the defensive coordinator, like, chest bumping people and throwing, the fist, like that on the sideline. So, I think that's something to be watching for. And maybe Wilks just isn't that guy. I'm not sure. I don't know.
That was highlight reel material. When you saw Robert Saleh or DeMeco Ryans chest bumping players, that was like, nothing brought me a bigger smile than to see that. I'm going to say, does this worry me? No, but it would worry me with another team. The reason that it doesn't worry me is you mentioned you have other coaches out there, Kocurek. I mean, I think it was Matt Barrows who initially coined the term that his enthusiasm is like a raccoon on meth. And that visual image has stuck with me ever since, because that's miraculous. I don't want to run into a raccoon on meth, but I would love to have that kind of encouragement while I'm out there. So you have that within the coaching ranks. And then you have the players, the veteran defense, veteran players, a lot of big personalities that can keep the hype up. I am going to miss the Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans impact, because you heard players praise them and talk about how that did hype them up. But I think we added another real one in Javon Hargrave. He's talked about as another high energy guy. You've got Fred Warner, and even Nick Bosa is really growing into that quiet leader. He may not have that outward enthusiasm, but I feel good about this defense and their ability to motivate themselves. I'm not worried about that unit.
No, I'm not either.
let's close this thing out talking about that
By the way, Harold throwing out tinfoil hat stuff in there. The Chiefs did not get to choose their schedule. No team gets to choose their schedule. It's on a rotating basis every single year.
Yeah, I think I saw a prediction of NFL is rigged earlier. I mean, Harold, all due respect, but I just cannot disagree more fervently with that, and would be happy to have a long debate about why that just does not feel possible in my book. Not saying that there aren't individual bad contributors within any organization, that you couldn't have someone who lays a bet and then tries to make it the outcome. And rigged, I am out on that. So yeah, I'm with you on politely saying, hey, bit of a tinfoil hat thing. Getting into the way too early record prediction. We are not going to give our actual record prediction here, although I have in mind and written down on paper, just right here in front. I could tell you what my prediction is. I've already told you the Niners are winning the Super Bowl there, so I don't need to make the record prediction. But will the Niners go over or under that 11.5? And would you make the bet? Is it a solid enough feeling of yes or no on the over or under that you would lay down cold hard cash on it?
I think I don't remember the odds, but I think it was like 140 plus 140 or something like that. So like 100 to win 140. So it doesn't really seem like a lot, and like 11.5 is still like a tough mark. I mean, we do play a lot of miles and everything like that. But yeah, I would smash the over. I think 12 wins is possible for this team. For sure.
I love that prediction. And I love Harold being like, I get it, man. Like, yes, I believe my thing, but it is quite all right that you believe something else. I believe that as well, that disagreement is a good thing. Healthy conflict should exist more often. We should be able to talk about our opinions without that fear of ridicule and just own our opinions. I'm with you on this one, man. Like, 11.5 that's a good season. You come out with 12 wins. That's a phenomenal season. 11 wins, still a great season. You are probably at 11-6 winning your division ish. Probably a lock on that. You're certainly making the playoffs there. I'm smashing the over on this, but I'm with you that as far as risk reward, simply because of those odds. Just because you have to wager 100 to really win 40 back, right? You bet 100 to get 140 back. That's a big time risk. I'm not going to make it. I would much rather add that money onto the Niners winning the NFC West, or the Niners winning the NFC Championship game, or the big money of trying to get to the Niners winning the Super Bowl. But
if you were to guess how many teams last year had 12 wins or more, what would you guess?
In the entire league, I'm going to say the number was 5.
Oh, a little bit more than what it is. It's 7.
7. Okay.
Wait, so let's see.
Between
1,
the
2, 3. I'm just going to double check here before I.
Buffalo,
4,
Cincy,
5, 6, 7.
the Chiefs, the Niners, the Eagles. Who else was up there? Oh, were the Chargers?
Vikings had 13 wins.
That's
Cowboys
right.
were 12-5. Eagles, Niners, Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals.
I like
the Ravens
Randy
and
saying.
Chargers at 10.
I like that. Randy saying 12 just to win the division. That's a good. That is a good prediction. JT, the Philly fans say, "Hey, Philly going for 15." I say, "Good luck to you if you achieve it." My hat is off to you, man. A 15-2 season is big time, man. And Spy Nick Danger coming in to say, hit the like button. Yes, if you enjoy the program, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Randon and I absolutely love coming on and I'll speak for myself. I absolutely love coming on and speaking football, and I love talking football with my man Randon here. So we're going to be here regardless, and it's cool to have big chats. It's cool to have that involvement. The more folks that are sneakerheads that are hanging out on the channel, the better the environment gets. So I appreciate it when folks put that into the chat and I can throw it up there. This has been a phenomenal show. Again, the schedule coming out doesn't move us any closer to the start of the season, but it sure feels that way. Like, it feels like, man, we're going to get some action here, even though we've got a lot of dead time coming up.
I will say I was disappointed we're not going to London.
Yeah, me too. That was a big letdown. That would have been an epic trip. Trip. You and I would have some stories to tell, my friend. That would have made for some good television afterward of Rob and Randon loose in London. That would have been the title of the show, Rob and Randon loose in London. Man, we may have to go there just for the hell of it. Raphael 5629ers coming in to congratulate us on a great show. I couldn't agree more. CJ Gray, salute to you as well. I appreciate everybody coming in. Joe E, again, appreciate the super chat earlier. Please do. Yes, hit me with the DM. We are excited. We are excited to see that. Wait, did he say that he hit us with it in here? I'm scrolling back just to see if there is a comment. Yes, it is. Here it is. This is the bold prediction. Rob and Randon, I can see losses to Seattle, Philly, the Giants, Dallas, Cincy, Baltimore, Cleveland. Hoping I'm wrong and we get a Super Bowl, but we struggle with mobile quarterbacks. That's a very true statement. And we're stacked on paper, but come up short too much. This is the bold prediction. I welcome the offer of a friendly wager, Joe E. I feel very confident that this will not be the case, but you certainly lay out at least a reasonable reason that it could happen. I'd like to see how confident you are and what you're willing to lay on the line. Randon, initial thoughts.
See, with Joe is like we struggle with mobile quarterbacks, but so does every defense in the NFL. And then you have us losing every single game with a mobile quarterback. That's just not likely. It's unlikely that we win every single game with a mobile quarterback, and it's equally unlikely that we lose every single game with a mobile quarterback.
Well, we will definitely be waiting for news of what the wager could be. Because I, for one, based off of this statement, and it's an incomplete statement, it's not a wager yet, but I will take this. If this is your contention, I will take this bet almost regardless of what you want to lay on the line. So throw that out. We look
many
forward.
ducats. Many ducats.
many. I may not have infinite ducats, but I will lay the vast majority of them on my opinion that this would not be the case. CJ Gray saying, I'm planning the trip to Cali for the playoff trip. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's get to Levi's this time around, not Philly. Randon, as always, my friend, an absolute pleasure going through this with you, talking football, breaking down the schedule. Thank you for being a part of the show.
Hey, it's always my pleasure, my man. I always love being here. It's good times.
Man, appreciate everybody that was here, everybody in the chat, especially those of you that are active in the chat with those awesome thoughts, additions to the show. I tell you, this stream would just not be the same without you, and I want to say thank you. We will be back next week talking 49ers as always, and until then, you know the drill. Cheers, faithful.